For the children, they grow up with the sense the world is a hazardous place, where they would lack the skills to negotiate their own way. Their parents are there literally every step of the way, so they struggle to develop a sense of personal responsibility and often also accountability. It isn't obvious to helicopter parents when their kids are young. Then they are wonderful parents, highly tactile, available, couldn't do enough for their own kids, interested in their education, driving them from football practice to home or wherever. It seems like it would be perfect. But children are little people. They want to do it for themselves as soon as they are able. So the helicopter parents are parenting like that for themselves, for their own agenda. They will tell you how hard life is and how it's all for the kids, but there's a certain amount of self-deception in that. Kids are tough, and they are survivors too. Plenty of kids grew up in orphanages and are more productive citizens than many overparented middle-class children. Another worrying development in our modern culture is the loss of the generation gap. Children, even small children, are now friends, and this bizarre development is motivated by the blurring of the divide between parent and child. There should be a gap of age and maturity. There certainly still is a gap of age. Children need to feel that there is an evolution to their acceptance as an equal. They have to be mature first. If they don't, then they probably have needy parents. However, helicopter parents tend to over-prioritize their kids, so the kids get confused. Because their parents are being needy, they lack credibility with their children as disciplinarians. How can you lecture a child in one instance and then seek their emotional approval immediately thereafter? A child, like any human being, senses immediately that they have power. The helicopter parent craves their child's approval. There was a sense in the past that the best place of children was around other children. Children would play in big groups, neighbours, siblings, extended family, and so on. To put parents and children together socially doesn't really work. The kids don't want to hang out with their parents. They want to hang out with other kids of their own age. It seems with parenting the old adage, less is more, seems to apply. The obligation for parents is really to create a stable framework for their kids. Kids are bright and resilient. They will find their own way, but they must be allowed to do so and allowed to be themselves, to make mistakes, to get it wrong, because that's what we all permit and allow in ourselves. It would seem that the challenge with parenting is to roll back the omnipresent parent as the child grows and allow for the emergence of an independent, self-reliant child. Children respond to their parents' needs, and if they are rewarded most often for being an emotional support and holding their parents' hand, then that is most likely what they will focus on doing. This can give rise in later life to the regrettable scenario of the overparented adult child who struggles to take responsibility for their own life and doesn't feel accountable for their own actions. There is the old expression, overparenting starts out as good parenting. But how much does that child need to be cosseted, held, smothered, grabbed, and so on? Probably not half as much as the parent needs to hold them. In terms of balance, it comes down to the way the parent feels. If they need a lot of reassurance, then the child will be called upon to provide it. If they struggle to relate to other adults, they will fall back on their children and overload their primary relationships. Societally, it tells us that we've created a lonely, unhappy society for parents to live in. We've lost our community spirit and we've lost touch with our extended family. So what's to be done? We need to find a balance in relatedness. Parents have to let go. The fundamental skill here is letting children be. They don't need child psychologists and numerous toys and micromanagement. They need to explore and discover and find out for themselves. They need to increase their autonomy and independence in a safe, appropriate way, appropriate to their age. The irony of good parenting seems to be that it is not necessary for the parent to be there all the time and ultimately at all. Children can negotiate complex and difficult situations for them and should be encouraged to do so. A parent is really a leader and a coach, not a friend to his kids. And they primarily lead by example. So if the parent gives bad example, pretty soon the child will be following that lead. The tough side of leadership is that when you do your job right, you are no longer needed. Then your children will say, "We did it ourselves." And they did. Children grow up all by themselves. But there is nothing worse than boomerang kids and adult children who are convulsed by self-doubt and confusion. The sad fact with parenting is, if it's done right, then the parents probably won't see their adult children very often, because they will be independent and resourceful adults living their own lives. If it is done wrong, then the parents can expect to see their adult children all the time, as their children will lack the ability to function on their own. But to be fair to the home pigeon adult children, they are just giving the parents what they appear to want.